buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, baby. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where there's everything to do with the show, including links to the podcast, the social media sites, and the audio-only live stream, and also live around the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. And welcome to the Michael Dukes Show. It is hump day, middle of the week, downhill slide, and so much more. So much more. Welcome to the program, and thanks for coming in to join us here on this very, very rainy Wednesday. Man, look outside. The dog looked at me when I opened the door for him. He looked up at me like, "Are you crazy? Do you want me to go out in that?" Anyway, welcome back to the program, and thanks for coming in. September 11th, 9/11 today, the 23rd anniversary of the terror attacks in New York, on the Pentagon, Pennsylvania, the whole thing. Just remembering, I was just thinking about it this morning, thinking about where I was and how I learned about the attacks as I come through. That was quite a day. That was quite a day 23 years ago today. And just, we can never forget that we're not too big to fail. We're not too big to have attacks. We're not too big to always be paying attention to that kind of stuff. It was pretty crazy stuff. And so just remember today, 9/11, and think back to where you were. Think back to where you were when you first learned it. I remember I was clear as day. I was driving into town. I was driving into work. And I was listening to KFAR in Fairbanks, which was my station where I had my show. My show at that time was in the evening. And I remember I was driving into work listening to the announcer on KFAR talk about it, and then the national news feed. And it was shocking. I mean, it was absolutely shocking. So anyway, just think about it. Just we'll get down to it. But just you'll always remember where you were. I guess this is how people who were alive when President Kennedy was shot, where they said they remember exactly where they were. It's the same kind of thing. I remember the car I was driving. I remember exactly what part of the road I was on. And I remember seeing cars like pulled off to the side of the road. Some people slowed down. It was a wild day. Let's just put it that way. It was a wild, wild day. So just a remembrance of that for today, because it's important to remember those kind of things. And tell you what the rest of the day looks like. We're going to be joined here in just a hot second by Representative Ben Carpenter, who is now running for state Senate. He's going to come on and join us, and we will talk with him about some of the governor's vetoes. We'll talk to him about fiscal policy. We'll talk to him about all the hot news of the election trail and what goes on out there and how his campaign is going and where he's going with it. Then in hour 2, we'll be picking it up with State Senator Mike Shower for the Shower Hour of Power. And we do have 2 veterans on today. That is 100% true as well. So good stuff for us to jump into. Before we jump into it with Ben, I did want to make the announcement that the judge has ruled in that case where the Democratic Party had tried to sue to get the Democrat off the ballot, Eric Hafner. The judge has ruled that even though Hafner is unlikely to become a resident of Alaska if elected, that it was outside the court's purview to remove Hafner from the ballot on those grounds. He said the court cannot make any factual finding about the future. The court would be speculating, which it has no authority to do in this context, essentially saying, this is it. This is how it is. And basically later on saying in it that this is how, that this is the system you wanted. This is the system you wanted. It's your bed. You must now lie in it. So it was good. It was a good ruling. It will be appealed to the Supreme Court. They've already said they're going to, although not given a time frame. And there's not a lot of time here, so we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, it was it's good stuff. All right, let's just jump into it here, so we don't want to burn any more time. Getting ready to dive into it here with Representative Ben Carpenter, our guest this morning, here to talk about, well, wood ticks, lunatics, and politics. That's what it's all about right now. It's good stuff this morning. Ben Carpenter joins us. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. I'm doing very well. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you okay. It's all good. I think I'll turn you up just a little bit, but I think you are good to go. Ben, it's been a while since we talked. How are things going out on the campaign trail?
I think they're going well. We've been picking up momentum since the end of after the primary election, and I think it'll be good.
It's been interesting because I've been thinking about you lately. Every time I see another article about another veto from the governor or things like that. And a lot of times in those articles where it talks about the vetoes, it will say, and that some of the people that voted, your name floats up a lot as somebody who voted against some of the things that the governor has vetoed. And so it's interesting to watch. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the governor's vetoes, but I also want to talk about the lack of fiscal discipline and an overall fiscal plan for the state, because you've been the champion of that. And that's what I have admired about you more than anything else, is that you've been fighting for this. Since you were part of the fiscal policy working group and moving forward, understanding that, we have a huge problem in this state. And I think everything that we're talking about today, all the outflow, inflow migration, the economy, the problems overall, the frustration, the PFD, all those things can be tied back to a lack of fiscal discipline and lack of a fiscal plan. So I want to kind of talk about that to begin with. But let's start off with the vetoes. There's been a couple of big vetoes here lately that people were kind of scratching their heads at. And I know that there's some reasoning behind it. One of the bills that I had mentioned earlier that I was not even aware of was a bill about mandating that people could get a year's worth of birth control versus, I guess, 90 days is the current maximum right now. And the governor vetoed that. And it was a bipartisan bill, had a lot of support from both sides, yada, yada, yada. But people were shocked with that. And the other one, of course, was the Turo bill that we talked a little bit about yesterday, which was the rental car bill, which is a tax that the government hasn't been collecting. And apparently the Department of Revenue has not been pursuing. But this would have mandated that the money came from Turo instead of from the car owners. So can we talk about just a couple of those vetoes, and we'll get into some of your other stuff here in a minute. But your thoughts on these, because I know that you were you debated and were part of this. So give me your thoughts on this, both of these bills specifically.
Thanks, Michael. I guess if we take the last one first, the Turo bill. I actually suggested to my caucus that we should go the opposite direction with it. If the parity between the two entities, being Turo and the regular rental companies, parity in paying the taxes was the problem, well, why don't we just eliminate the tax on the budget and Avis and all the rental car companies.
Somebody
right?
give me a hallelujah. Somebody give me a hallelujah. Just eliminate the tax.
About a way to incentivize economic activity. Well, why don't we let businesses and people keep more of their money, and then we have a little bit better environment for economic activity. It's a small token, right? I mean, we're not talking a huge amount of money every time you rent a car, but over the if you just look at the way that our economy is going within the state, we've got one of the worst growing economies out of the 50 states. So, and this kind of ties into the other veto that you were talking about, which is us asking for government service, right? There is an unending list of things that we can come up with to ask our government to pay for us. It's unending.
Right.
But at some point in time, somebody has to pay for it. And we're not willing as people, as Alaskans, to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to pay an income tax, or I'm going to pay a sales tax, or I'm going to pay state property tax in order to pay for the things that I'm asking. What is happening is your dividend is being reduced to pay for those services. So you don't really see it, but it is happening. You are having to pay for it. And that just means that there's money being taken. You know, you look at a 50-50 split this year of the permanent fund earnings is $1.8 billion going towards a dividend by statute. Well, that's $1.8 billion that would be going into the private sector, some portion of it. That's private business, small enterprise that would benefit from the permanent fund earnings, not just state government.
Right.
But yet we've got the incentives set up here in the wrong way. I kind of think that we need to grow up as Alaskans and realize that as long as we don't have to pay for things in a tax, we are paying for it. We just can't communicate it to ourselves. We don't realize it because it's hidden. It's hidden. It's hidden.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, first of all, applause for the idea of removing the tax, because you're right. I mean, they said even the newspaper article that said even the back taxes right now was less than $500,000 in owed back taxes on these car rentals from Turo, right? Which, I mean, to me and you know, on our daily lives sounds like a lot, but to a $5 or $6 billion budget, $500,000 is almost nothing. Yes. Open that up, allow it to get back into the economy, allow those people to make a little money. Now, the birth control bill, I was not, like I said, wasn't aware of it. I didn't know the details of it. Was it simply asking them to allow it, or was it making the government pay for it?
You know, I think it was adding a line item in our budget to pay for it. I'm pretty sure. I could stand corrected on that, but I'm pretty sure that would have cost the state money.
But it's indicative of a problem, like you said, that all these things sound really great. This is what I used to call what is nice to have versus what is a must-have. Must-haves are constitutional mandates. Nice-to-haves are everything else. And it seems like in this state, we seem to forget some of the must-haves, and we've filled our basket full of nice-to-haves. The question, again, as Brad has said, and as you just basically said, who pays? Who pays for all that stuff? Sure, it's nice to have, you know, AstroTurf fields in every school, in every community, in every part of the state. But who pays? You know, it's nice to have diving boards that are dangerous or all these other kind of things with all this government money. But who pays for that? And that's the thing we keep forgetting. We have become so inured to all this because the state was wallowing in oil money for so long, and we had so many things to do, and they just taxed it and taxed it and taxed it, took it, however you want to say it, in the background, and it was hidden, and we never saw the cost of it. Now that we're stretched thin for money, everybody's still like, oh, we'd like to have all these must-haves, but who pays for it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Michael. And you know, from an economic perspective or from a growing the economy perspective, if you'd been listening to the state chamber, well, for more than a decade, but since I've been in office, the state chamber comes to the legislature every year and says, hey, our top priority is getting a spending limit, an effective spending limit put in place to force discipline on the legislature. We have a spending problem. We are continuing to spend, increase spending. And some of that is just programmatic. Some of it's inflationary, right? As inflation goes up, there's costs that have to go up, or additional costs that then the funding has to go up to meet those inflationary costs. But the point that I'm getting at is we've got decisions to make. You're highlighting the must-haves and the like-to-haves, but we need to have a forcing function on the legislature that says, hey, there is a cap to how much we can spend this year. It isn't just how much money we have available to us.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said it for years. It used to be when I first started this radio program 25 years ago, I said from the very beginning, I said, in this state, we have a spending problem. They keep framing it as a revenue problem. Oh, we just don't have enough money. But it was always a spending problem. And it's been a spending problem, and it was a spending problem long enough that it became a revenue. They spent so much that now they needed more revenue. And so now we have both. But it's always the root cause of all this is lack of fiscal discipline. They've never seen a dollar they didn't want to spend in any legislature, the current one or all the past ones. And that was why Hammond instituted the permanent fund dividend to begin with. Remember, we got that first $900 almost $1 billion payment, and they burned through it like drunken sailors. And I mean, that was when the state budget was only $160 million a year. And they burned through 8, 5, 6, 7 times that amount in just like that. Yeah. And that's when you saw the spending become a problem. Ben Carpenter is our guest. Sorry, Ben, we're up against the break. We got to go. We're going to come back here. Sorry, don't get me worked up this morning. I've had some caffeine and an energy drink, both. I mean, it's like double trouble this morning. We're ready to go. We're going to be back with more in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Ben Carpenter is our guest.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right, Ben Carpenter is our guest here. Brian in the chat room says, dangerous diving boards. Glad you caught that. Yeah, I remember that money. That was money where, we're so struggling. Oh, but we're gonna break off $400,000 to great. And now it's like, those diving boards are dangerous. Oh my God, you people! Can you just not? Brian also. What else did Brian say? I was talking about the website and sweet merch. Is there merch? Please say that there is merch. Okay, there is merch, but it's not on the it's not on the old website. It's on the new website, and I have made a commitment to get the new merch out there, including my T-shirts that are the censorship T-shirts and the 6 o'clock club and all that kind of stuff. So I am working on it. Oh man, I got so much stuff to do. Ben Carpenter is our guest. Let me see. Colleen says, yes, as our representative is telling us, Alaska needs to grow up. Thank you, Ben, for being the adult in Juneau. Diving boards wasn't that me a custom? Yes, it was. And I was opposed to it then. Again, this is not strictly, remember, I mean, I think Ben and I have talked about this. This is really not about party labels, Ben, right? This is about more spending versus less spending. This is about more government versus less government. This is, again, the big question is who pays. And it doesn't matter. We've got people wearing the elephant on the lapel who are like, let me spend all I want. And that's part of the problem. You've kind of nailed that down.
Michael, the question's a priority question. Some of the things that the business community says, hey, we need stable, low taxation, stable government spending, low taxation. We need low cost energy. We need to reduce the cost of transportation. And those are the things that we should be focused on as a state legislature to try to kickstart and grow, provide an environment where our economy can grow, where business can grow. So we're talking about transportation. How long have we had an opportunity to connect the state's rail to the lower 48 rail? Talk about a mega project, but what would it mean for the state of Alaska to have a second path for goods and goods to come up to Alaska? That would be and come from Alaska, right? So investing in something like that to help with the environment, the business environment, is something that the legislature should be seriously considering. But instead, what we've done in the 6 years that I've been here is grow our agency operations. We've added 650 positions I don't know whether they've all been filled with human beings, but we've certainly funded them. We've increased our personnel services line by $600 million. So we've grown government. What would $600 million over the last 6 years have done for a railroad?
Oh, and forget about cutting vacant positions, right? I mean, that's the other. I mean, that to me, that was one of the prime examples of this last legislative session. Is we took an opportunity to say some of these positions have not been filled for 24, 36. A couple of the positions hadn't been filled for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Since
Well,
2014. I mean, what the.
We give kudos to the governor's team. I just saw a memo here yesterday that said that they're taking a look at the boards and commissions and have directed that any changes and additions to numbers of people has to be approved by the OMB director now. So I think that that's a good step in the right direction for reining in some of this government growth. Obviously, we've got to have that same methodology directed towards the agencies too. But I'm pleased to see that the governor's team is working on that.
Yeah, no, I am as well, because again, it's one of the things that has been brought up time and time and time again. I remember Tammy Wilson and I having a conversation 10 years ago about the filled but funded but unfilled positions and how many it was, and getting the actual numbers and figuring it out that it was millions and millions and millions of dollars, which would have been an easy way to try and trim back on government. It's crazy stuff. All right, we're going to continue on here. Ben Carpenter is our guest candidate for Senate District D. Please make sure that you, if you're thinking about it, somebody said that there's a meet and greet at, I saw Cindy. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Let me put that up there, and we'll talk about that when we come back. Back with more of the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share wherever you are. Let's get more folks involved in the conversation. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
All right, welcome back. Representative Ben Carpenter is our guest. He is a candidate now for Senate District D down on the peninsula. Cindy reminds us that tonight, 5 to 7 p.m. at Frozo's, you can come in and discuss politics and have a pizza slice with Ben Carpenter. Again, tonight, 5 to 7 p.m. at Frozo's Pizza. Please come out and join it here. Ben, we were just talking about, again, the economy and spending and a fiscal plan and all these other things. You know, one of the big news items here lately, of course, has been the decline in population in Alaska. That the outflow is actually lower than normal. It's people still, I mean, Alaska's got a big rotation rate. Usually it was 10% in, 10% out every year. But what's happened now is the outflow has actually gotten a little bit below normal. But the problem is the inflow. There's not as many people moving into the state as there used to be historically. And they all point to one of the biggest reasons is that Alaska's economy is behind. It is always behind. It's been down for years compared to the lower 48 economy. And this is one of the big problems. We've talked about that divorcing of the public and private economy, which has been exacerbated by how the legislature has handled things. They really don't care what happens in the private economy because all their money comes from the oil companies or the dividend or the permanent fund. And so if we really want to face these things, if we really want to look at that as a big problem, and I think it is, then we need to fix the economy. And if we're going to fix, and we're talking about the private economy, that's got to be a pure focus here, right?
I absolutely think that it is. And part of the problem is not just a state problem, but a federal problem, which means you have to send the right representatives to as our federal delegation to Washington, D.C., and you have to put the right presidential administration in that's going to prioritize natural resource development in the state of Alaska. We've been shut down by the Biden administration in so many ways, and that has had a trickle-down effect on the economy in other areas of the state. And so we're always going to be a resource-rich state. We're always going to be That's always going to be one of the primary drivers in our economy. And if politics is preventing us from developing our own resources, then that has to change. We Alaskans need to speak with a louder voice. I mean, think about this. You've got one political party, the Democrat political party, unanimously at their convention in 2022, unanimously adopted a resolution that asked the Biden administration to end oil development in Alaska. End of sentence, right?
Yeah, that's my
how out of touch can you be with the future of Alaska if that's what you think needs to happen in the state of Alaska?
Because again, the question becomes, okay, who pays? If there's no more oil development and we're shutting down oil because we want to do something, then who pays for state government? Who can afford to live here? They're expending what, $14,000, $15,000 for every man, woman, and child in the state, and a big chunk of that comes from oil. So where do you make that money up? Where does it come from?
Well, if the Democrats had their way, it would be an income tax. Just look at the bills that were filed this year. Income tax is exactly where the left will go to make up the revenue once the permanent fund earnings are gone.
And if oil revenues accounted for, I don't know, let's say half of the revenues in the state, and it's $14,000 for every man, woman, and child. Let's just say you had to pay $5,000 a person for state government to make up for the oil loss. Your family of four is now being taxed $20,000 a year for state government. How could anybody survive that?
That's the thing, is that petroleum revenue to the state is only just under 20% of our revenue.
I know, but I'm just saying, even if it was,
it's a valid point, because we think, and I'm talking to people on the campaign trail that are surprised to learn that oil is not the largest source of revenue to the state. Seriously, after all this time of fighting over the permanent fund earnings, people still don't understand that oil is not our largest source of revenue, and that the permanent fund earnings are now larger to the state budget than oil revenue is.
Right.
And that's what we're doing, is we're trading one volatile revenue source for another, maybe a little bit less volatile, but still volatile revenue source. And you would think that good management practices for a state that is relying upon volatile revenue would be to put a portion of that away every year into a rainy day fund, so that when we do have low returns on investments, we do have an environment where our oil prices are low, that we've got some money put away. But that is not a focus of our legislature every year. We spend every dime that comes to us with very little exceptions.
Right. No, and again, even taking into account that it's 25% of our revenues at $14,000 per person, that's $3,500 if we had to replace the oil revenues. Your family of four is now having to pay, $14,000, $15,000 a year just to live in the state of Alaska. How nutty is that? That's where we're at today. If we had to pay for all of this government, you're talking about $60,000 a year per family to be able to afford to do that. And it's unsustainable, and nobody's willing to do it. You just mentioned that people are surprised when you're out on the trail. What are some of the things that you're hearing out on the trail when you talk to people? Obviously, they're shocked when you give them that. What else are they saying? What are people upset about while you're out on the trail? What are they passionate about?
Look at the quality of education for sure is a problem. We've got a good portion of the people down here that have decided to take their kids out of the brick and mortar schools and put them into a homeschool, or try to get them into a charter school or something like that. So improving the quality of our education. Now, the way we do that, the way we improve it, there's some debate as to what the solutions are. Many people say, hey, we just need to spend more. And I have agreed to a spending increase in the past legislatures if we can tie that to measures that would increase the results and ensure that money actually goes to the classroom. My own school district down here just gave a raise to our administrator when we've got an outward migration of people, and I don't understand it. I don't understand why we give raises to administrators.
Right.
The system, parents are leaving because they don't agree with what the system is doing.
Right. A raise to an administrator with a declining population, declining student base, a fiscal crunch, and we give a raise to somebody. I mean, that seems to a little be counterintuitive. Like somebody didn't bother to read the room when they walked in, and they're just like, but again, this goes back to the legislative pay raises as well. We're in a fiscal crisis, and the legislature's decided to give themselves a 67% pay bump. I mean, and I know that was something you were opposed to, but this is indicative of this whole problem, right? I mean, that is a picture perfect example of this whole problem. We're in a fiscal crisis in the state, but we'll give ourselves a pay raise.
The legislature is making sure that our government is taken care of. Over 6 years, since I've been in the legislature, we've added 650 positions and $600 million in pay and benefits. State employees are being taken care of. And in this legislature, this election, you have a decision to make in Senate District D. You've got an individual like myself who's a private sector guy, and you've got an individual who's being supported. My opponent is being supported by all of the public unions. He's had had the benefit of their money machine to raise an obscene $197,000 for this race, and you wonder why government continues to grow, why the bureaucracy continues to grow. It's because we're sending people down there that they think that that's what the purpose is, that we have to keep the government growth going.
I think that that's in an agreement right there, that it's a total philosophical difference in mindset. I mean, you've got this race is the tale of two Republicans, right? That's what it is. But again, you can't go just by labels anymore. You can't just go by the party, because you've got to look at the philosophies. What is the philosophy? Smaller, more limited government, more pro-private sector, more get out of the way and let the free market work, or government's got to take care of everything. We've got to hold your hand. We know better than you how to spend the money. We've got to build up the infrastructure and the government to make sure that everything's protected. That's really the battling philosophies that we're looking at here.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Michael. That's exactly it. You've got a choice. If you want to support and prop up the cronyism and the corruption down in Juneau, then you send somebody down there that Juneau supports, that all your government lobby supports. That's exactly what this is shaped up. I'm not getting support from government lobby. They don't want me down there.
Right.
I'm the person that they want to have in the legislature right now.
No, because again, you've been talking about things that scare the hell out of them, like a spending cap, like fiscal discipline, like pulling in our spending, like shrinking the size of government to make it more manageable and more affordable. Those are things that is anathema to all of these different people and groups. I mean, if you want to look at special interests, just look at the APOC reporting for any race in this state and see who's being bolstered by whom. That will give you a good idea of whether or not they met. Now, if your philosophy is bigger government is better, then again, you'd know who to vote for. But if your philosophy matches what we have here on the show, which is smaller, more limited government, getting them out of the way. In fact, I think it was Timothy who just said government shouldn't be investing. It should be setting an environment for private enterprise to do it. That's 100% true. Government should not be providing jobs. Government should be getting out of the way to allow the private sector to do the things that it is meant to do.
Well, that's opening a can of worms. We have a constitution and a setup in the state that's kind of counterproductive in that regard. I hear on a regular basis where bureaucrats are standing in the way of resource development, and I don't think that they're doing it intentionally. It's just that it's their fiefdom, it's their purpose in life, because we are a state-owned. Our resources are owned by the collective, and so the state manages them.
Right.
It is not a good thing to expect our state government to be responsible for developing our resources. It's the last entity that you would ever want to be entrepreneurially minded. But they're the gatekeeper. They're the gatekeeper for the development. So is the federal government with regard to federal lands in Alaska. So right. We've kind of got things upside down constitutionally in this state, and therefore it matters who you put in office to try to rein that state democracy in.
State developed resources brings me of mind to the U.S. Post Office versus UPS. You know what I mean? I mean, they get two different doing the same thing, but one of them is doing it much more efficiently, much better. It brings me to that mindset as well. All right. Ben Carpenter is our guest. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. We're going to give him his head here in just in the last segment, talk about the things that he thinks are important that people should know. Not that what we've been talking about isn't important, but I've been kind of driving the bus this morning, so we'll give him the floor here in just a minute. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Your mental suppository. The Michael Duke Show.
All right, Ben Carpenter is our guest here on this. Yeah, sorry, Ben. I was on a bit of a tear this morning. It is. Here's the thing. It's unsustainable. What we're doing is provably, not even arguably, provably unsustainable. Just look at the 10-year forecast. Look at where we're going as far as, I mean, it's billion-dollar deficits plus as far as the eye can see. And what is the answer? Well, we'll just take the permanent fund. Okay, well, great. That's a short-term fix, though, right? That only covers us for, what, a year, maybe two? And then as the growth of government continues, which we know is $150, $200 million a year, just with baked-in escalators, then pretty soon, in another 4 or 5 years, we're another $1 billion. We know it is unsustainable.
Well, I agree with you. I would like to just highlight that the electorate needs to understand that if the permanent fund dividend program is something that they value, and the permanent fund itself is something they value, then they have to vote to maintain that permanent fund dividend program. And I think that there is a high likelihood that we end up, without any sort of substantial change in the next couple of years, we're going to not have the dividend anymore. I think that's the writing on the wall. That's the direction we're going. And if we're going to continue to spend the way that we've been spending, then the only source of revenue, the only source of money to go to when oil prices stay where they're at or drop is the permanent fund earnings. So the state government growth will consume the permanent fund dividend. And there is a push right now to move the earnings reserve account into the corpus of the fund and do away with it. And what in essence that would do is say that you don't have to have earnings in order to pay that 5% market value draw. You're just going to draw from the fund, not from the earnings.
Eating your seed corn. Yeah, you're eating the seed corn that's funding everything. When
you do not have enough years of positive returns and earnings, then your 5% draw or whatever percent draw you're going to make is going to eat away your principal. Now, if you're taking a look at the fund in a very long-term picture, then that might be okay. But do Alaskans realize that that's what we're going to be setting up? Is that every year that we don't have good returns or good investment returns, that money would be coming out of the corpus in order to pay for our state government.
Right.
It has always been known to people that the legislature and the government cannot spend from the corpus. But this is where there's a legal theory out there that says the only money that's in that is non-touchable by the legislature is the money that was put in there by the Constitution, the requirement to put 25% of our royalties in. Okay, so that's constitutionally protected. But the legislature through the years has put more money, billions of dollars, into the fund through inflation proofing. And that money was not required by the Constitution. So if it was challenged in court, would the Alaska Supreme Court rule that money is appropriatable by the legislature? I don't know how they would rule, but even having the conversation means that there are some people out there. It's recognizing that some people would like to have access to that money.
which I've been saying this since 1999 when they made the first run at the permanent fund dividend, that the whole goal is for them to get their hands on the corpus of the fund. And so all this discussion, the white paper from the permanent fund board, Bert Stedman's talk, and other legislators talk about, well, we're almost in a crisis because there's not enough money in the earnings reserve and blah, 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 that this is all a ploy to get their hands on the corpus of the fund. And if you think that the size and scope of government is large now, just give them unfettered access to the corpus of the fund. Because yes, it's 5% right now, but remember, that's statutory. They could decide, well, we actually need 5.5, or we need 6, or this year we've got some kind of special thing, so this year we need 7% of the fund. I mean, it could be anything. It's not locked in, and that is the danger.
Yeah, I think we are at risk of handing over a state to our children and our grandchildren that is a much, much larger government state, a nanny state, where the state government grows at the size of the permanent fund. I mean, the stated goal of the board of the Permanent Fund Corporation is to grow the fund to $100 billion. That's a departure, a change from past goals, which is just to grow and to grow whatever it is, 2.5% above inflation in order to maintain the growth of the permanent fund. Now
Right.
we've set a dollar figure on it because a 5% market value would give us $5 billion to pay for state government. And that's the goal here, is to just fund our state government off of the permanent fund earnings. And then you have a government that grows at the size of the permanent fund earnings.
Yeah, it's insane. And of course, that's the whole point at this point, to disconnect it from the private economy so it doesn't matter what we do there. It's crazy. Here we go. Jumping back in, the Michael Duke Show.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Ben Carpenter is our guest, representative, and now candidate for Senate District D down on the peninsula. Ben, I've been kind of driving the bus a little bit this morning. I was like I said, I was a little caffeined up and I was agitated about some stuff. But let's talk with you. Your highlights and your goals here in this campaign. What should people know as they're making this vote? What is your vision for the state? If I, wave the magic wand and you are out there, what should people know, and what is the vision for the state moving forward?
Hey, Michael, we've been talking about much of what's been on my mind. You started this conversation before I came on talking about 9/11, and that was a day that changed the trajectory of my life. I was in university in a Cisco networking class, as a matter of fact, with a bunch of active duty Air Force guys. I had already separated from active duty and was in the reserves. And it was shortly after 9/11, maybe a year or so after 9/11, I made a decision to join the Army ROTC program and be commissioned back into active duty in the military, because I really felt strongly that if the enemy's willing to take the fight to our shores, then we better take the fight to their shores. And so there required some sacrifice on my part in order to do what was necessary. And I really think that mentality carries forward to today in the state of Alaska, where we really do have to think about what are we sacrificing in order to better the future for our kids, for the next generation. And when I look at what's happening with budgets in the state government, I'm not seeing there's a whole lot of sacrificing going on. We're asking government to do just about everything that we want it to do, and we're just the money's coming from the permanent fund earnings, and there's nothing that Alaskans are asking ourselves to sacrifice other than taking the dividend. What that means is that our private economy is the one that's sacrificing. We don't see it. We don't think about it, but that's what it means. It means people don't have the money that comes out every October to buy the things that they normally buy.
Right.
That means the private sector economy doesn't have those shoppers coming into their stores. Okay. So the structure that we've got in the state right now for finances, leaning on the permanent fund, is leaning on the private sector. We're just not talking about it.
Right. Well, I've often said that that's the hidden tax on Alaskans. And if Alaskans receive the royalties directly, if everybody got a check for $15,000, $16,000 a year in your family, and you're like, wow, high cotton. And then 2 weeks later, the state issued their tax bill for the cost of state government, and you had to turn around and write a check for $14,000 or $15,000 back to the state, the spending in the state would come to a screeching halt. Because people would understand and feel the true cost of what it's all hidden. That's the problem. Nobody's feeling the pain because they're not seeing it. It's hidden behind the scenes.
And it's a lie, Michael, to think that we're going to be able to have a government that is funded by the permanent fund earnings and not have some sort of a tax, because that's going to happen as well. There will be an income tax push as soon as the permanent fund earnings are consumed, and we still need roads and we still need schools, and we don't have enough money for the growth that we need in government. Right. And so what are you going to do? The permanent fund earnings growth isn't keeping up, so we need more. We can't cut our schools and cut our roads and
right. Free rides die hard, right?
You're going to end up with a tax.
Yeah, so, free rides die hard, and you Alaskans need to start paying your fair share. That'll be the language.
It is a much better position for us to be in control of that money than the state government be in control of that money. So the permanent fund earnings coming to us in the form of dividend, and we spend it in our economy, and then we agree to take what money comes out of our economy in the form of a tax to pay for the government. It is what every single state in this nation has to fight every year in every battle budget, except for the state of Alaska. We are not fighting that fight. We are avoiding it. We are avoiding it, and the cost is our private economy.
This is a uniquely Alaskan problem. Every other state has some form of connection to the private economy because that's where they draw their funds from. That's where they draw their revenue from to keep state government going. So it's in their best interest to protect and bolster and increase the private economy. But in Alaska, it's an afterthought.
You're absolutely right. We don't have conversations in Juneau about growing the economy. That is not. I mean, I've had conversations with folks who think the government economy is the economy. Like,
right, that is the economy. As long as this one's okay, everyone's okay. Don't worry about it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Ben, what is your exhortation to the listeners? What's your pitch to the citizens out there in your constituency as to why Ben Carpenter is the choice here? I mean, what are we looking at if you're not elected?
Well, I'm going to continue doing the same thing that I've been doing with regard to pushing for a long-term fiscal plan that includes a spending limit on government, a reorganization of our tax structure that incentivizes economic activity, and a solution to the permanent fund dividend problem that we have, which includes a statutory spending structure on the dividend, so that we have more fiscal stability in the state. It's a more predictable budget process. I've authored the bills to help improve the budget process and put a fiscal plan together. There just needs to be a will to get it done in the legislature, and it's not. I'm not going to be able to get it done by myself, but will that conversation continue if I'm not there?
Yeah. Do you think your chances are better? Because again, you fought, in the House, you were doing yeoman's work in the House, trying to get this across the line, trying to do something. What do you think that your chances in the Senate are better to try and do the same kind of battle plan? Or, what are your thoughts there?
Well, you've got an opportunity, or voters have an opportunity this election to change some of the players. And I know that's one of the key things you've been talking about for so long. Change some of the players in the Senate to a more conservative approach. And that would send a message from Alaskans to the Senate that it needs to wisen up. It needs to take this fiscal responsibility seriously. So myself and a couple others, you've talked about it on the show, which races those are. We need to seriously consider making some changes at the Senate. We had to do that in the House 6 years ago. I was a benefit of a third of the legislature, or a third of the House turning over when I first came into the House, because people were frustrated with big government House members and enabling the left to get things done. And so we had to swap out a bunch of people in the House. We got to swap out people in the Senate. It's a never ending battle. So don't grow weary in well doing here.
Right. Again, that's exactly what we say all the time. You can't stop now. Can't stop. Ben, we're down to the last about 2 or 3 minutes here, 2.5 minutes. So again, elevator pitch, any events, how do folks support you? As you pointed out, your opponent is raising gobs of money from special interests. And so if we want to see smaller, more limited government, we need to support you in that regard. So give me your elevator pitch here. Why folks, how do they support you? Where are you going to be? Events, that kind of stuff.
So it costs money to get radio ads out, costs money to send mailers out. Those are things that the campaign's going to have to do if we want to be competitive. I'm going to be at the Northern Lights Espresso, 9 a.m. this morning. I'm there every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. People could come in and chat with me. I'll buy you a cup of coffee here for the rest of this election season. We are going to be in the Cooper Landing Community Center, Community Hall this Friday the 13th from 6 to 8. And we'll actually be joined with candidate John Hillier for the state house. I've endorsed him for replacing me in the house. And if you haven't had a chance to meet him, you should. And then we already talked about the meet and greet. Cindy was good to put a plug in. We'll be at Frozo's tonight at 5 to 7, and you can come out and ask me questions and have a conversation. Lastly, I'd just like to say that some of the other candidates that are going to be on the ballot, like Nick Begich has endorsed me for this seat. Past candidate Kelly Chewbacca has endorsed me. And I have another endorsement that I'm going to announce here very shortly, but it's a pretty big and powerful endorsement. And anyway, you really do have a choice between a candidate who is pro big government and pro special interests, and myself, who is pro small government, limited government. That doesn't mean lack of education, lack of roads. That's not what that means. It means let's make our government more efficient and make it work for us. And it's clear to me, and I'm confident that as we get our message out, it'll be clearer to others.
Big endorsement. Ben, I've already endorsed you. What do you want? Anyway, it's all good. Ben Carpenter is our guest candidate for Senate District D. Go out there and help him out, folks. Make it happen. We need to get Ben into the Senate to again change out the players and make a change in the Senate to get it more to the conservative side for sure. Ben Carpenter, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Thanks for being part of it today. Hold the line. Folks, we're out of time. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Shower Hour of Power up next. Ben, I'm just hopeful that the folks on the peninsula can see the stark differences between you and your opponent. And I am worried. I'll be honest with you. I am worried, especially with the amount, because a lot of times these battles, these challenges, come down to money. Because if he can flood the airwaves, because he's got raised multiples of what you've raised, that he could flood the airwaves, and a lot of times voters are just not paying attention close enough, and the name they hear the most that has their party letter next to it is the one that they vote for. And again, this is a Republican on Republican battle, but the R really doesn't matter. It's a philosophy thing. And I'm really concerned about
we're doing our best. We're knocking on doors. We're getting out and meeting people, and others are inviting me over to their homes to talk with in small groups. And so that's what's going to matter, is getting the word out in a grassroots fashion. I've said it from the beginning of the campaign. That's what's going to make the difference. And I still believe it today. So,
Ben, I wanted to give you the last 2 minutes here on the floor for anything we didn't touch on, any subject we didn't reach, or something you want to expand on. Ben Carpenter for Alaska.com. Thank you, Donna, for putting that up. That's his website if you want to donate or find out what's going on over there. Ben Carpenter for Alaska.com. But Ben, you get the final 3 minutes here on the floor.
Thank you. It's great to have such good help. I had it written down that I've got a phone number if you have questions, 907-690-6494. You can email me at ben@Carpenter for Alaska, ben@Carpenter for Alaska, or the website is bencarpenterforalaska.com. So thank you. Donations are gladly accepted from all over the state. I appreciate it. Well, I don't know what more to say. I mean, the election is coming close, but we still have time. So we need to get out the vote. We need to get out the message to local residents here that you do have a choice. It does matter which candidate you select. And if you want to continue the way we're going in Juneau, then that's the other candidate. I am standing on some fiscal principles that say we need to promote growth and the private sector economy, and we do that by constraining spending in state government. We do it by making government work better for us, by making it more efficient. I created a sunset Sunset Commission bill this last legislature that was a model after the Texas Sunset Commission that would empower Alaskans to do a deep dive into their departments, agencies within the state government, and over a period of time provide recommendations for change into our state government. If we don't have some external mechanism to do a deep dive into our government, I don't know how else you're going to get some systemic improvement. It just is not happening in the time that I've been in the legislature. So we need to do some things, and it is possible. And I just the 6 years of experience, I think there's $800 to $1 billion of excess that we could trim from this budget, and that would make a big difference to the fiscal situation in the state. I think we could do it. We could continue to do business as usual. Do the things that we expect from state government and do it with less cost if we had a will to do so. Yeah. That will starts with sending the right people to the legislature.
David just said, folks, time to belly up to the bar. I just donated another $250. Please match me. So again, if everybody pitched in 25, 50, 75, 100, $250, we could get him, we're going to get him across the finish line here. So Ben Carpenter, thank you so much, my friend, for coming on board. We appreciate it. And we look forward to the race. We look forward to seeing you in that chair when it's all said and done. And anything we can do to help, we're always happy to have you back on. I've offered the floor to your opponent as well. Have not heard back from anybody there, but we'll see what happens there. So Ben Carpenter, thank you so much, my friend, for coming on board.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure as always.
Ben Carpenter for Alaska.com. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon here, my friend. Thank you so much. All right, we're getting ready for hour 2. I believe Mr. Shower is on the phone. You with us, Dozer?
Your belief would be correct.
All right. So he is ready and we're ready to go. It would have been, Ben Carpenter and Mike Shower. That's like the dynamic duo. Especially if it was Senator Shower and Senator Carpenter, that'd be a hell of a show. We'll have to organize that here down the road. All right, Mike, you ready to go today? Are you fired up? You got, what's the hot topic that's on your mind today?
Oh, I'm sure everybody wants to talk about the debate. That's always one because the presidential is so important for Alaska. So we can discuss that. Certainly.
Do we have to?
No.
No, that's fine.
I just figured you said what's hot. I'm sure everybody's talking about it.
I didn't watch it. I watched some of the highlights afterwards just because I couldn't. It's so painful for me to watch. And my wife was watching parts of it, and we were in different parts of the house, and she started sending me shots and Facebook posts and all this other kind of stuff with the highlights, and I was just like, oh my, what a crazy thing. They're not even pretending. The news media these days is not even pretending to be unbiased anymore. It's just not even, I mean, it was like somebody from the campaign got into David Muir's skin and just basically, it was astonishing. So yeah, we could talk about that and be all about that. So, sure. Let's get to it. I'll put you back on hold. Mike Shower is our guest. We're getting ready, folks, to jump back in on this Wednesday edition of the Michael Duke Show. I would ask that wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, that you hit the share button right now. Only 14 people have liked it. I don't know why. There's 50, 60, 70 people here watching. Like it, share it, love it, live it. Let's go. The Michael Duke Show.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, live around the world on the internet and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show, and we are broadcasting live, ready to go here on this beautiful Wednesday. Thank you for being part of it. We just finished up with Representative Ben Carpenter, who's running for state senate in District D down on the peninsula. Don't forget tonight, 5 to 7 p.m. down there in the Kenai at Frozo's. You can come have pizza and talk with Ben Carpenter about all the stuff, about all the things that he has envisioned there. If you missed the show, you can go back and listen to it on the podcast, which is available on Spotify or wherever you find podcasts, or you can go back and rewatch it on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble, because we had it up there. We're simulcasting it as well. Hour 2 of the big radio show today, and we are diving into it with what we lovingly call the shower hour of power. That's right. State Senator Mike Shower joins us almost every week to hang out and talk about things that are important to him, and I think important to all of us. I just love getting his perspective on stuff because I just gleefully cackle when I think about some of the people's heads exploding as they watch and listen to the program, because they're out there. There's a bunch of folks out there who are listening to this, probably because they're paid to listen and write down exactly what's being said. But there's a bunch of people out there who are listening to it, and I just love to envision their heads kind of exploding as they listen to it. State Senator Mike Shower joins us this morning to discuss. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I am doing fine. Remember, Michael, that when you are not over the target, you take no flack. When
That's
you are
true.
Close to targets that matter, you take flack.
That's true. Yeah.
Hey,
You're taking all the flack, baby. You're taking all the flack.
I've
Mike,
taken a lot of flack in the last 7 years.
so there's a bunch of stuff we can talk about today. Somebody wants to talk about, the loss of state sovereignty and everything else, but we wanted to start off with a discussion on the debate last night. Now, again, I'd be the first one to admit I refused to put myself through that kind of pain, so I only watched a few of the highlights afterwards. I did not watch the entire debate. But a presidential election is important, arguably, for Alaska based on our resource development and everything else. So it was important, and that's something you wanted to touch on. So give us your thoughts on what happened on the debate last night.
Yeah, so the reason, Mike, like I said, not every presidential election is the most important in our lifetime, right? You hear that often, how important elections are. And it's not always based on the candidates that important for Alaska per se. However, this particular election, I think, is different for us and is one of the more important ones. And the reason is very clear. We've discussed it, but last night was an interesting kind of point in the march towards this presidential election, because the Biden-Harris administration has been probably realistically the worst presidential administration for Alaska in Alaska's history as a state, because they are 100% anti-development. I've watched Rep Mary Patola try to take credit for the Willow Project when she was part of helping kill it, because remember, myself, the only Republican, went to D.C. early last year And we had that energy or that conference there, and it was specifically about the Willow Project, and it was almost all native, and there was a lot of other things there, and that were discussed as far as policy. But the primary focus was to get Willow Project. The Biden administration were going to kill it. Harris was going to kill that project with Biden, and by the work of it, and to the credit, Dan Sullivan, Murkowski, and a few others, and we were there interviewing with the press. We were out on the front lawn, basically pleading with them to not kill it because it is so important to keep the Alaska pipeline open, and the fact that we are a resource development state. And when you add things like the Willow Project, they just shut down the Ambler Road mine again. They're talking about they shut down the Anwar. Like there's 60 or 61 now, I believe. Direct executive orders from Biden and Harris stopping resource development in Alaska. Everybody knows, even though the press is trying to hide it and lie about it, that Harris is far more radical than Biden. Biden is pretty much a patsy. The guy does whatever he's told, for best I can tell, looking at the reality of the situation. Harris is an ideologue and a true believer, kind of like a Al Gore. Dangerous, right? Biden's only as dangerous as they make him be, kind of puppet strings, right? But Harris is dangerous. Harris is an ideologue. Her father was a Marxist. She believes this stuff. Remember the old unburdened by the past and moving forward. Michael, that's right out of China with their revolution, where they murdered tens upon tens of millions of their own citizens. And that was their get rid of the old culture, go to the new communism, Marxism. She says these things. And so for Alaska, I don't think it is over the top to say this probably is the most important presidential election. And we're a small state, right? Only a couple electoral votes, but sometimes it could matter if it's tight, and this one might be tight. Because for Alaska, if it's Harris, Waltz, they're going to continue, which she has said she would continue on the green anti-resource development policies. And Alaska is going to essentially wither on the vine. Because these projects are long lead, right, Michael? We know that. We can't just go, hey, tomorrow, let's, turn on the project. Let's turn on Willow tomorrow, turn on Anwar tomorrow. Okay, go. No, these take years for us to develop and actually move oil through the pipeline, or years to develop the infrastructure to develop a new mine or whatever the project might be. A Trump administration has been very clear, as it was in the past, that they're all about resource development. So if you are from Alaska, this is a very important presidential election because the policies are very clear directions. One is pro-resource development, pro-capitalism, pro-constitution, et cetera. The other is very anti-resource development, which Alaska lives and dies on. So that's a long, diatribe for me, I know, but I do think it is important people understand that this election cycle for us is actually very important because of the policies of the presidential candidates, and they are very different. And I did, yes, watch the debate last night. Michelle and I did, and it was painful. I think Kamala Harris did a better job of staying calm and presenting her points. I do. And,
I agree
she
with that.
looked better than Trump did. Trump took the bait. He got, he allowed himself to swing when he should have just stayed focused on her. However, it's also true when you look at it, those moderators it was a 3-on-1. There's no doubt. They were biased. They fact-checked Trump. They didn't fact-check Harris. They didn't ask her. They did not force her to answer the questions. They'd ask him, and she'd just blow right past them and not answer one thing. They came back and hit Trump and said, well, answer the question. They never did that to Harris, not once. So it was definitely not a great performance by Trump, but it was also a complete setup by ABC. So it was not good in any stretch of the imagination. That's my assessment of it.
No, I agree. From what I saw, the pieces and parts that I saw, he took the bait. And in some cases, Trump is his own worst enemy. I mean, he just cannot help himself but go on the ad hominem personal attacks when instead he should stay on message and stay focused. But again, part of that also, I think, came from the fact that David Muir and company there at ABC were completely in the tank. They weren't even pretending to be unbiased at this point. And I saw many commentaries afterwards that were saying, not just on the right, but even some of the middle ground people were like, that didn't look real good. That she did well, but it was very obvious that that the commentators and the moderators, they're not supposed to be commentators, the moderators were very much swinging from her camp. And that's a problem. That's a problem.
It is a problem. Right, Michael, because it helped somebody that clearly doesn't talk well off the cuff And they never put her back on her heels to force her to have to do that. All three of them did that to Trump repeatedly, and he took the bait and should have done better. I'm not going to give him a pass and go, oh, no, he did great. No, he didn't do great last night. He should have done much better considering who was in front of him and who was to his left. He should have been able to focus on them the entire time and pivot back. He just didn't do a good job with that. I'm gonna call a spade. You know that. But at the same time, it was clear they never, like I said, they didn't fact check Harris. They didn't put her back on her heels. They didn't force her to answer the questions. They asked her basically softball questions. Almost all of those questions were softballs for her and harder ones for Trump. And they did it on purpose. And they never called her on it. And on top of that, when you kind of look at it, Michael, it's like it was almost like she was really prepared for those questions. And I'll just leave that there.
Like maybe she knew what was going to be asked. Surprise. Again,
Michael, the way this press has acted, I wouldn't put it past them for 1 second to have passed those questions to them. Not one. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if we found that out.
Yeah, no. Look, it wasn't.
She was way too prepared.
It wasn't shocking. Her first interview with Dana Bash on CNN, which aired at like 23 minutes in length, and then we find out later it was supposed to be a live interview. Then we find out later that it was actually recorded and it was 41 minutes, and they demanded that CNN edit it down and cut a bunch of stuff out. And she didn't do very well in that one because, again, it's extemporaneous, and I don't think she had the questions. Those were two different people. The person who did the CNN interview and the person who did the presidential debate, to me, look like two different people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was like, considering all of the years of video interviews that I have watched her or off the cuff comments, watched her talk, Michael, what I saw last night was not the Kamala Harris that has typically talked in front of the press, in front of a microphone that's asked a question. She stumbles. She has hyperbole. She puts her hands in the air. She says really weird stuff like your information is floating around above your head in the cloud. She cackles a lot with a laugh. We didn't see any of that last night. Now, part of that could be really good coaching, obviously. But when you have things prepared and you know what's coming, it's very easy to stay on the script. And she stayed on the script. And she basically talked about divisiveness all night long, and let's leave the stuff in the past. But then she repeatedly attacked Trump, and they never said anything about that at all. He was doing the same thing. Obviously, it was like a high school, throw mud at each other. She just did it better. But like I said, I go back to the Harris I saw last night was not the Harris that you typically see talk, which is very suspicious to me because you don't act like her, cackle and speak poorly your entire life, and all of a sudden in one debate for 2 hours you get it right. And you sound really presidential. I'm sorry, that's not her unless she was overly prepared and knew what was coming. And that's why I'm a little suspicious that, and knowing that this has happened in the past, right?
Right.
The American legacy media has done this before in many instances. So this is not like a one-off. You go, oh, come on, man. They never do that. They do this crap with them all the time. The legacy American media is the arm of the Democrat Party. It was on display last night. So, look, Trump bad. Trump was not good in that that interview or that debate. He should have done much better than what he did. But it was clearly a setup for with those guys and how they played this. So Michael, it is what it is. We'll see where it goes. I don't know. I don't think it's going to swing Harris voters. I don't think it's going to swing Trump voters. The important ones are the independents, so-called,
the middle,
and what they think of that and where they go with it. And I don't know. He's been doing really good on the road and off the cuff interviews and whatnot. That debate is going to be interesting to watch because she's going to get a bump.
Right.
I mean, I know how politics works, right? The question is, will she maintain it? Will they do another interview? Or keep saying interview, they do another debate. I mean, who knows? I mean, she will never agree to do one like with Fox News, right? Because that would be exactly what Trump faced last night for her, and she would stumble. There's no question.
Yeah, no,
because they would give different questions, and they wouldn't give her the questions early, and you'd see an entirely different Harris. They're never going to let that happen.
Yeah, she's going to take she's going to take the Joe Biden basement approach, I think, to this election. We'll be lucky to get another. We'll be lucky to get any more candid interviews, and we'll be lucky if we get another presidential debate. I just think that
they're going to consider this a home run, and they're going to leave it alone. They're going to sit back and ride the wave. That's what they're going to almost guarantee it.
Yeah, so. They're going to coast to us. We've only got we've only got 6-7 weeks until the election. So, I mean, I just think that at this
55
point,
days or something.
yeah, it's going to be a difficult situation. All right. Well, we're up.
And they're already voting. There's already early voting starting.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Well, we're up against the break, and so we're going to continue here in just a moment. Mike Shower is our guest. We'll turn things over to Alaska here in just a minute, and we'll return. And we're just going to riff here for the next couple segments and see what's on his mind. We'll be back with more. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Mike Shower is our guest here on the program, ready to go. I mean, this has always been my problem, Mike, with Trump overall, is the guy cannot stay on message. He always ends up going with the ad hominem personal attacks, and I know that's worked for him in some venues and things like that, but in this case, they did a much better job of prepping her. And they, like you said, they took a lot of her idiosyncrasies and they were able to get her to suppress them, her hands, her cackle, her running off script. And it does look a lot like maybe she had some previews of what the answers or what the questions were going to be.
She was too smooth.
Yeah, I mean,
too smooth on all the answers.
Yeah, based on what her past performance is, for sure.
That's right.
But
that's the judge, right? It's not how she did last night. It's what I know of her in the past to last night is very different, and that's not normal. So
it is what it is. And I will say, while this presidential election is important, I don't disagree with that. It seems like every presidential election is the most important election of our lifetime over the last 20 years. But I will say this, we'll still be here. Even if Trump loses, we'll still be here on the other side. And we'll have to rebound and come back and do more.
Yes,
but it doesn't mean you stop working it. I'm just saying it won't be the end of the world. Per se.
No, not the world and not the country, because you'll also have a Congress that can fight the president, blah, blah. That was never my point on that, Mike. That's why I'm not jumping and going, the most important ever. What I'm trying to say on this one is specific to Alaska. And it's based on 4 years of Biden-Harris policy shutting us down for resource development. 4 or 8 more years of it, Alaska will be dead in the water. The reason is because we can't just turn on the pipeline. We can't just turn on projects in the state for resource development. They take billions of dollars and many, many years, sometimes 8, 10, 12 years to bring online. And so having 4 years of being shut down, plus another 4 or 8, you will essentially strangle us. And that's the reason I was trying to be very specific. It's not that I'm up there saying this is the most important ever. They're always, sometimes can be very important. But for Alaska specifically, this presidential election, notice I'm not even saying so much our legislature and whatnot. The presidential election, based on what she is going to do because of who she is and what she has said, is perhaps the most important one for Alaska, because without a pro-resource development administration, we are at a crossroads where our ability to develop resources continues to drop off. And that's why I think this one is so important on the presidential side. Unfortunately, we're a small state. Right, we don't have that many electoral votes, but if we come back to it, where it's down to getting close to a 50-50, Alaska could matter in the end. And so, we'll vote for Trump most likely. I mean, we did last 2 times with a pretty high number, but that's what I'm trying to tell people. I say, at least get out and vote. Show where we stand, show that it matters, because this one actually does, and then hopefully downstream vote too for good candidates. While you're at it, don't just vote for the president. Vote.
Right.
You got state races, for House and Senate and local ones too. But anyways, I'm trying really careful to not be over the top.
Right.
But I think this one really is important for Alaska because of that reason. Very specific to resource development policies that Biden Harris have been very hostile towards us. Very hostile.
It's interesting that we were talking about the basement strategy, and Ice Snare Wolves over on Rumble says even Fairbanks candidates are running campaigns from the basement. It's the new strategy. Never answer a question in public. And I don't know if you saw that, but there's been a long-running forum in Fairbanks for like 30 years, 25, 30 years. They've been running this forum every election from the Interior Taxpayers Association. And all the Democratic candidates or progressive candidates refused to participate because they said, well, we just wouldn't be treated nice. And so we're not going to come answer questions. This is the new answer.
They don't want people to see where their policies are. They don't want to have to answer hard questions. They don't even typically go out there with their ads and say that they're Democrat, Mike. They hide it. They don't show that. They don't proudly say, I'm a Democrat. I'm a progressive Democrat. They go, I'm running for office and I love Alaska. And yay fish.
Here we go. All right, we gotta jump back in. All right, the Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
And here's Mike Shower. It is the Shower Hour of Power here on the Michael Duke Show, this Wednesday edition of the show. It's, by the way, I should mention at the top of the hour, 23rd anniversary of 9/11 today. And we were talking about it in the last hour that everybody, I mean, for our generation, Mike, it must be like when Kennedy was shot. For the previous generation, they remember where they were when they heard about it or when they saw it, when they saw what was going on. I remember 9/11. I remember what I was doing. I was driving. I was listening to my radio station, and I just remember. I remember seeing people pull off to the side of the road as they too were being informed that it was going on, and just the shock of it, and how we can never forget how that happened, and the fact that is that we're not too big to fail. We're not too big to be attacked. We're not too big to be. We can't let American exceptionalism take us to the edge of arrogance in that regard. We can be attacked, and that proved it. And it was a blow to America, but it was a blow that helped bring us and make us stronger in the long run. But 23 years ago today, and kind of a shocking thing.
Well, yeah, Michael. Well, throughout history, there's moments like this that happen that, honestly, you don't, as a population, see it coming. There were, as you look back in the report, there were intel indications that something was afoot. And I know there's people that say it was an inside job. I don't believe that necessarily. And the reason I say necessarily is because there was a lot of indications that something was happening. I don't think the system necessarily knew exactly what it was. But there's no doubt that there was intel. I mean, look, the FBI was told about people that were, learning how to fly, but all they cared about was taking off and flying. They didn't want to know how to land. And there were other indications and chatter. So my point of all of that is to say that, yes, we were kind of caught off guard as a country. Maybe we shouldn't have been, but we were, or at least as a people, right? And that can happen to us at any time. It was a little disgusting last night, quite frankly, watching Harris talk about Trump, and he should have highlighted this. He didn't. That, you're there for the worst attack on American democracy in the last century, where Harris says that the night before the anniversary of 3,000 Americans being killed in their own soil, which is the worst attack on American soil in history. Really, I mean, if you want to look at more modern history in the last century, right? Because even Pearl Harbor, less people died than happened on 9/11. So I was disgusted by her last night when she said that, to use that little phrase where she's like, and the police officer died. The police officer, he died of a heart attack. A police officer died in that attack. The only person that died was one civilian that was shot by a police officer. I mean, the lies they talked about, somebody said, she had 17 lies the first 10 minutes. And not to say both of them are not culpable of some of that, but the point is, Michael, to take that and twist it, as the Democrats continue to do, when they forget that, the worst attack on democracy was 9/11, at least in our lifetime, in our generation, right? And that is something that is going to resonate with us for some time. Unfortunately, we went on a tear through the Middle East, which probably wasn't all that wise in retrospect. But policy is what it is. So 9/11 was I think that generational, like you said, Pearl Harbor, JFK, space shuttle blowing up, 9/11. Those are things that happened that, like you said, most people will remember where they were, what they were doing. I was right in the heart of my military career at the time, deployed actually when it was happening. And it does. It affects you, and it can change the course of history, right? It can change the course of a nation. What did it lead to? I mean, let's think about that. I don't think bin Laden saw all of the events that were going to take place in that, and maybe not his own death coming out of it, but the U.S. went on a tear. Afghanistan is what that is, kind of a bubble out there by itself. But then we went to Iraq, which in its own way led us to AQI, right? Which became kind of ISIS and ISIL, which then Obama unilaterally pulled us out against the advice, just like Bush went in against the advice of most of his team. Then Obama pulled us out against the advice of the same military and intelligence agencies. Don't pull us out yet. We're not ready. That gave us AQI, then ISIS and ISIL. Then the Arab Spring. The entire world over there is turned upside down. And then, Biden takes us out unilaterally out of Afghanistan. We were not prepared. Another thing. So the Taliban replaces the Taliban 20 years later, right? And then go to things like the Biden-Harris policies on the southern border. That is Trump was right about trying to bring that up over and over. And it's important to the American people because we're seeing this flood of immigrants that are not here legally. Many of them are criminals. He wasn't wrong. I don't know about the numbers per se, but he wasn't wrong. We're seeing rape and murder and all kinds of crimes across the country from mostly Latin and South American gang members and others that have been let into the country by Biden and Harris. That wasn't wrong. How he presented it and argued it was not as clean as it should have been. That's just another issue, right, Michael? I mean, so these things all have consequences for us, and they're real. I highlighted with you a few weeks ago where I found out about policies that matter, right? Where Ukrainians are being hurt, and others, obviously. That's just the one specific group. I know of 1,300 plus, that the automatic voter registration installed by Democrats and lower 48 billionaire money and left-wing groups gave us one of 4 or 5 in the last 10, 12 year of these initiatives, and real people are being hurt by them that are coming here, legally trying to get asylum, that are decent people, not the Venezuelan gangs. Look, I mean, I watched an entire thing where Mayorkas and others are talking about the fact DHS they know that the Venezuelans were releasing the prisoners out of their prisons and sending them to the U.S. with orders, come back, we'll kill you. But you go to the U.S., then we'll let you out.
Right.
These are not things that are conspiracy, Michael. These are real, and our own government is acknowledging them. So we got problems, but back to elections have consequences, and it's more about the policy. So
right.
It is, to circle back to how you started, many of these things can link together, but 9/11 was a tragedy.
Yeah.
And it was a moment for this country that maybe realistically altered the course of the world on certain things. And some of it was not really good, like the Patriot Act. Michael, I've never been a fan of that. People like the Patriot Act. Yeah, we're going to hit those terrorists. I'm like, actually, you're going to continue to erode the constitutional right of American citizens.
Right.
The Patriot Act is not a good thing.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, the enactment of the TSA and the Patriot Act are two of the biggest bad black marks that came out of 9/11. We didn't learn. And again, it goes back to the whole Benjamin Franklin, security of a free state, security and freedom, they're not mutually exclusive, or in this case, they are mutually exclusive. It's not supposed to be easy, right?
Yeah. For the government to do its job. The government should have to work to find the criminals, to find the terrorists. It should have to work to incarcerate somebody that's accused of violating X number of laws that we have in the books. But it shouldn't be easy, right? I mean, we are supposed to be protected from the government by our Constitution, like this whole debate about Second Amendment. I've been on that quite a bit in the last week or two with another school shooting, et cetera. Had to put a whole thing out there writing about it, talking about it, going, Pepe, I do not think this means what you think it means, right? It's back to the Second Amendment was not for hunting, et cetera, like they keep trying to make it. The Second Amendment was written in context by the founders. When you look at the transcripts of their speeches and you look at what was done in context of the time, the Second Amendment was for one specific purpose primarily, and that was to keep the citizenry armed so they could fight back against a tyrannical government, because they just did that. They just had a king that was ruling over the colonies that tried to confiscate their firearms and tell them how it was going to be. And the people were like, enough of that. All right. So the Second Amendment has nothing to do with self-defense and hunting and blah, blah, blah. The Second Amendment, from the time frame of when it was written, specifically so the people would be able to stand up against a tyrannical king or government. So there's things like that, Michael, that they continue to erode. You're like last night, Harris. Oh, Waltz and I own guns. I'm like, I bet she doesn't own a single gun, whatever. But don't tell me that. Everything you guys have been doing are red flag laws, mandatory buybacks. She said it, Waltz has said it, and they don't even call her on it. They don't fact check her. So I don't know, Mike. Things like Patriot Act and other stuff, and this slow erosion, right? It's the frog in the pot of warm to boiling water. That is where we are with this, because look, there are red flag laws in Alaska, of all places, one of the most pro-gun states for a lot of reasons in the entire country. And you got Democrats in the Alaska state legislature pushing red flag laws, buyback laws. Don't tell me where the Democrats stand on this. Come on, man. I'm not a fool.
It's pretty obvious exactly where they're standing on it. Let's bring it back to Alaska for now. Looking at the races, looking at how the looking at how everything's setting up here in the state. From the congressional race all the way down to the state legislature. What is your thoughts here on what's going on in Alaska right now?
Well, the good news about the congressional race, because we only have that, right? Because the 2 Senate seats aren't up this year. So you got Patola versus Begich pretty much at this point. Begich is getting a lot of endorsements and a lot of money, which is what we needed. First of all, he needed that to counter all of the money and power that Patola is getting from, mostly lower 48 money, from Democrats and left-wing groups, et cetera. So Begich needed that to be able to counter this. And now we've kind of got it down to a 1v1, which is what we needed, and how Republicans are going to win in Alaska with ranked choice voting. You have to have, these 1v1 races. We can't have 2-3 Republicans fighting each other, splitting the vote.
And then the Democrats, and now the Democrats are throwing lawsuits to prevent the other Democrat from being on the ballot, because that would be wrong. That would confuse the voters. They actually said that in their post. This would confuse the voters.
I posted about all those too, Michael. I mean, the hypocrisy is rich and strong right now with the Democrat Party. All of their talk about it and whatnot, and they're actually suing and saying it is ranked choice voting is too confusing. So, the funny thing is, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you advocate for, Mike, because that may come back to haunt you. And right now, it is hilariously coming back to haunt the Democrats big time with their own words and their own actions. So that's pretty funny. But that race is much better for us as Republicans or conservatives right now, because Begich has money. He's getting a lot of endorsements. He's getting a lot of momentum. And so that's a really important one for us. So that's good. I think we got a good shot at that one. And that's going to matter in the House. If Harris Waltz win, having the House under Republican control, regardless of what you think of all the DC Republicans, I get it. I feel the same way. But still, having an opposite party in charge to counter that is going to be critical, right? We cannot have another 2008 where the Democrats for 2 years controlled everything. That gave us Obamacare. It gave us a whole bunch of garbage that we're still suffering under. So last thing you want really is all three under one branch of, especially radical Democrats on the left. I wouldn't mind so much if they were on the right, but obviously personally. But anyways, so that's one. Then the House, Senate, and the state, because that was your question as well, are interesting because you're getting some of these races with a ton of money, like Fletcher up in your old neck of the woods, Fairbanks. She's getting a ton of union and left-wing money, Mike. I mean, last time I checked, she's way over $100,000. Maybe more than that. But you got 150, 200. I don't know. It's a lot, right? And, so hopefully Kronk is going to pull it out. The good news is, again, we are seeing Republicans, conservatives, people right of center are learning how to play the game and doing a good job. About the only one left was Wright up in the Alaska or in the
both
Wasilla
rights,
Senate
both
race.
rights, right?
Both rights, correct. They just stay in the race, dude. And they're going to be spoilers. Here we go again. I am going to oppose that guy I'm telling you right now, I'm going to actively oppose that guy because moving forward, I'm going to do my best to make sure that guy never gets elected to an office, because I am sick and tired of us being our own worst enemies, Michael, when they know that staying in that race is going to split the vote and maybe we get the least best candidate. I'm not talking specifically about the people or the names. I'm talking about how we do business. And when we look at this and you're the second place, third place, fourth place, not the top vote getting candidate, and you stay in anyways, you are not doing this for what is best for the state or the people of Alaska. You're doing this for your own narcissism, your own pride, your own ego.
Yeah.
Period. Dot.
Period. End of sentence. Full stop. All right.
Full stop, man.
Full
So
stop. No, what I mean is full stop. We got to stop. All right.
Oh,
The Michael Duke Show continues. One final segment dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
All right, Mike Shower continues with us here in the break. Our guest, Donna, wins the internet today with this comment. Two rights can make a wrong.
that is good. Touche, Donna. Well played. Well played.
And that's look. I'm all for people who want to run, not because they think they can win, but because they think they want to bring something to light, or they want. I'm all for that. But in this case, again, you look at this and you're like, you guys, all you're doing is continuing the status quo. This is not helping. This is not going to help, and it's just.
But like
it's
you
crazy,
said, Michael. So let people run to the primary and run your heart to your heart's content. Do your best, and if you come out on top to be the top one against a Democrat or maybe two Republicans maximum against each other, may the best candidate win. Right? Fine with that. Doesn't bother me. I want people to get involved. But once you get down from the primary results to the general election, then everybody needs to let go of their ego at that point. And so many good people across the state did. Nancy Dahlstrom finally got out of that race. Sharon Jackson, Kim McCarty, Tom McKay, James Squires of all people that can be, pretty tough.
I'll be honest, when James Squires dropped out, because I thought he would say, I'm going to take a principled stand. He got out. I was shocked.
So because he's smart enough to look and go, Fletcher? He doesn't want Fletcher representing him. She's a far left radical progressive. He's smart enough to look at it, but yet we still have a few in the state that decide they're going to stay in the race no matter what. That is bad, Michael. That is bad policy.
We're looking
bad
at
ego.
Wait a second. We're looking at you, Harold. We're looking at you, Harold, right now. I mean, you're
another one.
You're 5%.
Why are they in it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want Janice Parks, and I really don't want James Kaufman. But of the two, I mean, Kaufman is still better than Parks, and you're the 5% difference. Maybe you should, but too late now.
Even JFK, take it nationally. Even JFK Jr. Said that. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to win. I'm going to spoil this. I think Trump's policies are better than where the radical Biden Walton or Harris Waltz administration would take us. I'm gonna go join Trump, vote for him, get my people to come across, hopefully, and we'll try to get him elected because he sees that it's still better. And even think of that, Michael. Look at the administration that guys, but I haven't seen an administration like this since the Reagan years, and not even that. Ben Carson, Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of some other names.
RFK.
He's getting people that were opposed to him on a lot of topics. He's getting people that are towards the top of their field that are really good at what they do. I mean, he is building a team that's what Reagan was kind of known for, a team that had a lot of contrarians on it that gave Reagan the chance to get the whole breadth of the thing, not a bunch of neocons and, acolytes that are around and telling him, that he's the best thing ever, right? So, I mean, I'm looking at the team alone that Trump is building to bring in, going, whoa, I haven't seen a team built like this, and like I said, since maybe the 80s of Reagan. This is the last time I can think of anything like that. It's impressive. So, anyways, it is frustrating on the election side to see that once again we have people that their egos are so big, their pride is so strong that they're not going to get out of races knowing that they're going to spoil them, and it is frustrating. Boy, I got to tell you, man, I will actively oppose people moving forward. I've decided that's one of my missions because I'm just tired of these candidates doing that. I don't care, like I said, like you, I don't care who runs. more the merrier in the primary. Have it out, duke it out, the battle of ideas. But when you get past that and it's clear who's going to get the most votes, whether, like I said, two Republicans or Republican be Democrat, then that's all that should be left to let the best candidate win at that point.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself a question as a candidate. Is there a path forward? Is there a clear path to victory? Is it within a few points? Is it just a two-person race? I mean, like you and your opponent during, you lost the primary, but you won the election, but you didn't drop out because it was just the two of you, right? But if you've got
nobody else,
right, if you've got a 3 or a 4-person race and you're polling in single digits, and is there a path forward? You have to ask yourself, does this make sense? And, I think that's the big question. Are you willing to be the bigger person and pull back and support the candidate that you can agree with most? You may not agree with a candidate totally, but can you find the one candidate that you agree with most? And again, that's why I applaud Nancy Dahlstrom. I was not a fan of hers, but I gave kudos where kudos are due. She pulled out and did what was right for the state overall. And I think that's important.
Well, it's like I told a lot of people that asked me about my support of Nancy or of Nick. I said, I'm not anti-Nancy Dahlstrom. I consider her a friend. I like Nancy. I was never anti-Nancy. I'm pro-Nick because I was on board. I was one of the first, I may have been the first legislator to jump behind Nick when Don was still alive because I wanted something new and I knew Don was going to die in office and it was going to give us this mess.
Right,
so
right.
It's not necessarily about being against somebody, but you can be for somebody else. And that's the reason you don't give any support to the first one. So there's a lot of races like that. So we can continue that.
Harold said 12% of the voters voted in his district in the primary. Even if double that or triple that did, the numbers still don't work, Harold. I mean, you're a math guy. Do the math. There is no path to victory on that. But, you do you, boo. It's your lie.
Whatever.
It's your lie. You
Whatever.
tell it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
I actually looked the word up. It does mean what I think it means. Jeez, that guy. He's so snarky. All right, Mike Shower. Speaking of snarky, our Mike Shower, our guest, state senator for District O. He's not running for office, but we love having him on just because. Because, again, I like to envision the people who are down in Juneau or who are normally down in Juneau, people who work. I love envisioning the worker bees in the legislature having to listen to this and transcribe it and watching their heads explode as they listen to the show. I love that. I think that's just hysterical.
I think most of the staffers like us, Michael. It's kind of funny. I get along with all the staff. There's not a single one that's ever been, disrespectful, whatever. They may talk about you behind your back or in closed doors, but we get along with just about everybody. It really isn't an issue like people think it is with that. It's not that contentious that way. I mean, obviously over policies and things and caucusing and coalitions, certainly it can be. But then again, like I said, you got people still spreading the lies about like I was working with the FBI, trying to stab us in the back when there is currently, like I've said it many times in the program, there is a current state senator that worked with the FBI, volunteered to wear a wire, but yet I'm the one taking the heat for it because they keep trying to blame us for it and people keep listening to it. So there are things like that are causing issues, but the reality is most people get along.
Yeah, exactly.
Well enough,
well enough.
As well as you're going to get along. I mean, because you're putting 60 people together, from across the state with varying backgrounds and varying views on life and ideologies. And there's not going to be, it ain't going to be all kumbaya. I mean, people, look at that bipartisan coalition in the Senate, 17. There's Democrats and Republicans that are getting along so well. No, they weren't. You just don't see it. You don't see the struggles behind closed doors, the arguments, the debates, the bad feelings. You just don't see it. But trust me, it's there. If you think they're all happy getting along kumbaya, you'd be mistaken, my friend. You're just not seeing it all. So, it is what it is. And even if it's all one, all Republicans or all Democrats, they're not all getting along well either. And there's plenty of arguments and things that happen. They just, it's like the thing happens, right? Like they're behind closed doors, yelling at each other, whatever. And then the cameras come on and they step out there. Oh, look, smiling, shaking hands.
Right.
It's a show.
They don't circle the wagons in public and shoot inward like the Republicans normally do. They occasionally do that, but generally speaking, they kumbaya and hold hands. Everything happens behind closed doors. All right, Mike.
Let's clear up one thing real quick. Just one thing.
Go ahead.
I know it's your favorite watcher of the show always says this about how well I got it. while I'm so opposed to ranked choice voting, but I want to be real clear, and I think your people are smart enough to get it, that somebody on your program keeps saying this one, bringing it up all the time. Like I've said before, Michael, just like we did on the break, I support if there's no Democrat in the race and there's just two Republicans, let the two Republicans at the top duke it out, because then it's going to be a battle of ideas and there's a challenge, right? What I don't like to see in any race is an unopposed person, because that means nobody's challenging them. They're not forced to go to debates. They're not forced to answer questions or answer their policy positions or what they may have done if they were already the incumbent. That's not how I think this is designed to work. Unfortunately, ranked choice voting can give us that, right? So before ranked choice voting, I had a Democrat in the race. And so we had a chance to go to debates and talk, and that's important. I think it's important to always have the challenger, right? And so when one of your favorite radio watchers on here is always saying, well, he would have never gotten it without ranked choice voting. I get that. But it also isn't a good idea. And I said it very consistently, even when it first came out. I said, well, if you got just two Republicans, let the two Republicans duke it out. At least they can have debates, which we did. And you can have that argument, right? So that's why I go back to either one Republican versus one Democrat at the top of the ticket, or if it's only Republicans, then two Republicans, right? Everybody else get out so we can have that debate of ideas. But it's not a fair point that your favorite pal on here keeps bringing up, because it's not relevant. And I'm just shocked by the contention that he thinks that it's okay to just have one person unopposed then, with nobody forcing them to answer questions, nobody forcing them to debate, so we can have ideas and competing plans and policy positions.
Right.
Is that really what you want? Is that that's your thought process?
I've always said that every race every incumbent should have a challenger, regardless if they're my favorite if you're Mike Shower, one of my favorite senators in the world, I would still be disappointed if you didn't have a challenger in the election. Why? Because iron sharpens iron, right? It keeps you on point. Right. It keeps you principled and keeps you on target for what you've got going on. I am disappointed for races that have no challenger, because even if it's a perennial candidate, I think it's important. I think it's important to the way our government is put together and to the republic that every incumbent should have a challenger.
And speaking of something important that I must say before I get in trouble with the most important person in the world to me, I have to make a PSA here, a public announcement. The Valley Republican women are having their annual chili cook-off on September 22nd at 6 p.m. at the train depot in Palmer. And you can meet a lot of the massive candidates, and I'm pretty sure Vegas will be there. And it's $25 a person. So just so I said that so I don't get in trouble, that will be happening here very soon, and I have now done my duty.
Well, see, I thought you were going to offer a PSA that said you were running for governor, which I thought would have been great. That would have been great. That would have been great. You notice I said that when Michelle's on the other side of the telephone. So, I mean, I'm just saying, it's,
Smart. And she's across the room, too, because she turned right around. I got the eyes. I'm like, don't look at me. Talk to Duke. You call him after.
I mean, that would be, hey, it's my lie. Let me tell it. Okay. I'm just saying it's my dream, Michelle. Just let me live it for a few minutes here.
Look, pal, I would, unless we repeal ranked choice voting, I would never even consider that, because I would never make it in the state with the current setup, right? A conservative is going to tap out at a certain level in the state without appealing to moderates or take moderate positions. It's simply not possible without ranked choice voting.
Well, we saw that back
to a different.
Yeah, we saw that the last race. We saw that the last race where, the conservative candidate for governor ended up having to tap out. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. And until we get back to that, and I think we will. I think, it's on the ballot now. It's, I think that people are frustrated enough. Even the Democrats are admitting in their court filings that it's confusing, and it's, even they acknowledge it. It's so funny when the shoe's on the other foot at this point. But I think it's going to go away. I think people are frustrated enough that that will, even though they're pumping millions of dollars into campaigns to confuse people even more. And they're not talking about ranked choice voting. They're talking about dark money again. They're going with the dark money thing. Yeah.
The dark money is left. It was Michael, when Michelle and I met with some of the folks that were doing the grassroots initiative early on, they were going to go for full repeal. They will tell you one of the reasons they did not was because of what we told them. I was very specific. If you repeal the whole thing in dark money, people like dark money being gone. That's what they thought, right? No, it wasn't all gone. It's not right. The way they're selling it is a lie. But the point is that don't touch the dark money. What people don't like is ranked choice voting. It's a voter suppression
and the jungle
scheme.
primary. Yep.
And the jungle primary. You repeal that and leave the dark money, it takes away the wind out of their sails of trying to, oh, they want the dark money back. No, we don't. Right? Leave that piece. So they did. They kept that off that initiative on purpose. And that was based on one of the very first meetings we had on that, almost 2 years ago. So that is important, right? So that the people don't allow them to do that. So yes, they're lying again. If you think those people and Alaskans for Better Elections and all the lower 48 groups that are giving them the money are being honest, well, I got some beachfront property for in Arizona, brother, because they are flat out liars and they don't care. They're desperate to hold on to it because it has nothing to do with Alaska. It has to do with the national narrative where they've got a dozen or 15 states or so right now with ranked choice voting initiatives because they know it will turn red states to purple to eventually blue, and it helps them go to the one-party system that we kind of almost have in a weird oligarchy way anyways. But that being said, that's what this is about. The reason they're spending money, Michael, is to save it here so they can keep selling it across the country, which is why it is so important. Just keep hammering it on your program, brother, every day. Yes on 2 in November. Yes on 2. Yes on 2. Yes on 2. That's the answer. People just need to know the simple thing. Vote in November.
Right.
And yes on 2 on the initiative. Everybody else, vote what you want, presidential, you got, but yes on 2. Absolutely. You must look at the ballot and get to that second initiative and go yes on 2. People need to hear it 1,000 times between now and November on your program and every other one in social media. Yes on 2. Yes on 2. That's the answer.
Mike Shower down less than 2 minutes, and I mean it. Less than 2 minutes. Final thoughts.
No peanuts. So.
No, exactly.
More rhymes than I mean it.
Right.
Peanut? Oh my goodness. I don't know, my friend. It's just, we can just ramble on for 2 minutes because I think we've hit the important stuff that's on everybody's topics or, on their minds right now. So, I mean, this is that Alaska time, right? Everybody's fishing season's kind of died off and everybody's out there hunting right now and doing their thing. And we're all hunkering down for winter. So I don't know. I mean, I'll ask you got any big plans in the next month or two, going on vacation or anything before you move on us?
Oh, there's always things happening everywhere. What are you going to do? My big plan right now is to make sure that I got everything cleaned up around the house before the snow flies. That's my next crisis point. The thing that keeps me up at night is like, did I put that away? Is that still sitting outside? I keep waiting to wake up with snow in the yard, kind of thing. And so that's my next crisis point. But I didn't get all my honeydew list done this year. So what are you going to do?
We got our wood stacked. That was the big one. We got most of our wood done. So we're pretty much, that's our kind of, you do that all summer, you kind of slowly get to it. And I know we're out of time, but I'll end with that. It's just like, if I get to the point where the wood pile is finally done, if it's flat and it's all stacked, we're in good shape.
There you go. All right. Well, Mike Shower, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you coming on board. Folks, we got more coming up tomorrow. I got to talk about this whole thing with the Fairbanks North Scarborough School District, where the guy, one of the members, posted a butt picture on Facebook. No, seriously, it's crazy. We'll talk about that tomorrow. The Michael Duke Show. Be kind, love one another, live well. All right, Mike Shower. Final bite at the apple, man. Final bite at the apple.
Dude, I think we took that sledgehammer out and crushed the apple today. It's applesauce.
No, it's
left.
Good stuff. Good stuff today, for sure. I mean, this is all important, but at the same time, remember what's also important, and that's, your family, your community, doing things like that. As much as we get wrapped up in the politics of it, we still got to live with people, whether we agree with them or not. And I think that needs to, be reminded of people. I think they need to be reminded of that front and center every day.
I do, but I will say something, Michael, on that as we, end the segment here is that, I have seen a lot of people and watch them like that are Democrats left that are switching over, voting for Trump, whatever. And they'll tell you that. And I'm seeing this again and again across the country. And I think it generally holds true. It's not 100%, but generally holds true. The left, the far left folks are the meanest, most vitriolic, most just unhinged people in this country. And if you go to one of those rallies out there for that and you wear a Trump hat or a conservative thing, they just come out, they'll attack you. They yell and scream at you, obscenities, etc. And you get these people that are going, well, they go over there and they wear a Biden-Harris one, or they go and they're Democrat to like a Trump rally or something. Everybody's nice to them and they're kind. They say, welcome. Nice to see you. And it's unfortunate because I agree with you that we are all Americans at the end of the day, and we need to treat each other at least with respect and agree to disagree. But the divisiveness that I saw Harris say last night is mostly on the left, not all, but mostly. And the amount of, like I said, just anger and bitterness that I'm seeing from the left is unfortunate because it is not allowing us to progress with the discussion of what matters the most. And I know that's a very kind of I don't even consider that a partisan statement, Mike. That's just fact. And I wish that we would get back to a place where it's like, I disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it, because that's where we need to be. The Republic has survived worse things, Civil War, World Wars, etc., and we will survive this.
Yeah.
But I wish we would go back to a place, Michael, where we would at least treat each other at the baseline. We're all Americans. We're all human. We all have the same fears, hopes, and dreams. And I wish that we would get back to that and just agree to disagree at the end of it, and so be it. But we're not there. We are very divided right now as a nation, and it's hard to be here right now, especially for you and I and our kids and grandkids. Right? It's like I want better for them, but we're struggling with that. We are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm reminded, I saw last week, I saw a video of a kid who went to the Biden-Harris rally wearing a Trump shirt. And he got a lot of anger and a lot of shouts and chest bumping and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was just really, and then he went over to the Trump rally and stripped off his Biden-Harris t-shirt or his Trump t-shirt and had a Biden-Harris t-shirt underneath. And the first gal that saw him as he stripped off the shirt, she laughed. And then they showed the video of him talking to people and people disagreeing, but, always being friendly. And I think that's the thing. I mean, what about the joy, right? Where's the joy they kept talking about at the day? This is a time of joy. And yet we don't see that. We see anger. And we are all Americans, and we have to agree to disagree. And unfortunately, we seem to have lost that ability to have discourse in that way between some groups of people. I mean, I can agree or disagree with anybody, and I don't have a hate. I don't have an anger. But some people they can't do that anymore. It's unfortunate.
We need to remember what matters, Michael, who the enemy is, where the real threats lie. And unfortunately, we're allowing the powers that be that are pulling the strings to have us fight each other. And that's the problem, right? If we ever figure out that the real enemy is not each other, they're in big trouble at the top. And that's unfortunate because we are allowing ourselves to be divided at the lowest level. And if we ever unite and go, it's not black, white, brown, red, yellow that's against each other. It's not poor versus the middle class. It's not the old divide and conquer rule. Then the elites at the top that really are pulling strings are in big, big trouble. They're going to do everything in their power to keep us divided because that rule is simple. Divide and conquer. If we're fighting each other, we don't fight them. And there's a lot more. What was that? Remember that cartoon or that animated show was like Ants or something? It's like, those ants outnumber us 1,000 to 1. If they ever figure it out, our way of life is over. Exactly.
Right.
And that's something that should be thinking about.
That's why it's divide and conquer. That's why it's bred in circuses. That's why it's distract, because we ever figure out that we had the power, it's a whole new ball game for sure.
That's
all right,
brother.
Mike Shower, thank you, my friend. As always, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on board.
Talk to you next week. You guys take care.
All right, we'll see you later. Appreciate it. All right, folks, we are out of time for today. Again, tomorrow I am working on some guests. I know on Friday, Jacob Sullivan from Reason Magazine is going to be joining us for Firearms Friday. But tomorrow we're going to be talking about this Fairbanks school board member who let it all hang out on social media and then was offended. You're invading my privacy. Wait, I thought you guys were the ones that posted your own butt on Facebook, and now you're upset about it? I mean, what? I don't understand. Anyway, that's coming up on tomorrow's show. We'll have that discussion and more. Thanks for coming in. Be kind, love one another, live well. And don't forget, you can always support the show by going to Patreon, patreon.com/Michael Duke Show. It's a shameless plug to help support the show. If you want to do it, become a member for as little as a cup of coffee a month. You can put shoes on my kids' feet. You can put kids in my kids' shoes. Just do that. There you go. All right, my friends, out of time. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Show.